There were a litany of roster moves for the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday, and though I don't know if any of them are really big enough on their own to warrant an entire show, I thought we could go through the entire list here in a show just to kind of recap some of the things that have happened on the ever-evolving 2024 Kansas City Chiefs roster, including number one, DJ Humphries signed officially. Now, I have listed here the physical attributes of DJ Humphries on the screen: 6'5", 307, 33 and 5/8 inch arms, 10-inch hands, a 5'1", 240-yard dash. Those are the big ones. A 31-inch vertical, 8'8" broad jump, 26 reps on the bench press. Those are impressive numbers as well. Here's maybe a number that is just as intriguing, but you won't find it here. Yesterday's video, I talked about Kingsley Suamataia, and I don't think anyone caught it in the comments section at least, but the video was titled "Defending a Boy Named Suamataia." Johnny Cash, a boy named Sue. Anyway, not to take too much credit there. In that video, one of the things that I pointed out was that there is an incredibly high prevalence of the best offensive tackles in the NFL having been first-round draft picks. DJ Humphries was selected 24th overall. Now, the lowest drafted player in that video was 23rd overall. But still a first rounder. Not the lowest drafted player overall. The lowest drafted first rounder was 23rd overall, but 24th overall for DJ Humphries. This just cements the fact that he does have a high ceiling. Offensive tackle is one of the things in the league that teams spend an inordinate amount of time and resources scouting and trying to get correct. It is probably not, there are fewer, I would say, extenuating circumstances to offensive linemen, I think, just because of the sort of the mental makeup of an offensive lineman versus the mental makeup of your typical wide receiver, a guy who has to have a little bit more daring versus a guy who has to have a little bit more grit and determination to play the offensive line. So you remove that circumstance, and the scouting that goes into offensive linemen is an extremely high risk, high reward type of endeavor for scouts, but it's something that is probably, I would say, more well cemented than quarterback, than wide receiver, than defensive tackle, than any of these other positions. So the fact that he was a first rounder does further say, hey, the guy has something here. The next thing that we have to talk about, surprise, there was an injury. Peyton Hendershot was moved to IR. He was moved to practice squad IR with a calf injury. The current IR roster, including Isaiah Pacheco and Charles Omenihu, if we are willing to backtrack just a few days: Hollywood Brown, Harrison Butker, Jody Fortson, McCade Maddower, Sky Moore, Isaiah Pacheco, Rashee Rice, Jalen Watson, Jared Wiley, Charles Omenihu, Peyton Hendershot. That's 11 players. You know what else has 11 players? An entire side of the football. The Chiefs could field a side of the foot. They could field a defense or an offense with their MASH unit. Probably, looking at the names here, probably an offense, but a lot of wide receivers and tight ends on that list. I'm not sure exactly what it is that old Patrick Mahomes is doing out there. One name that I didn't spend a whole lot of time considering is a name that joined this list in the preseason right there, McCade Maddower. And, you know, I kind of glossed over this at the time. Normally, players who get injured in that situation, they reach an injury settlement with the team. They do not join the IR. He was not a drafted player. He was a UDFA that probably didn't have a whole lot of chance to make the roster. He shined a couple times in the preseason. He looked pretty good a couple times, but he was not someone who was particularly noteworthy coming out. He's a guy that maybe had a fringe draftable grade. Maybe they saw something that makes them want to keep him around. So the offensive line could be absolutely reloading here. In addition to the 3 players they drafted and the UDFA and Ethan Driscoll that did make the team. Now, this is what Peyton Hendershot had done so far this season. Not a whole lot. So I'm not going to say that this is a game-changing injury for the Kansas City Chiefs. He has 3 receptions on 3 targets for 26 yards. He has some special teams snaps, I believe. I'm not seeing them on the screen there, but not a whole lot this season. Still worth keeping an eye on because he is someone that they traded for. Moving right along, surprise, there was another injury. Spencer Schrader, the guy who won the game, pulled his hamstring. So the kicker that was signed to replace the all-world kicker that the Kansas City Chiefs had finds himself injured as well. You just have to take him in stride at this point, I guess. Matthew Wright, the kicker, was signed. Now, here's a little ditty. I'm going to show you Matthew Wright's career experience. Look at all that. Pittsburgh Steelers in 2019, Tampa Bay Vipers in 2020, Pittsburgh Steelers in 2020, Detroit Lions in 2021, Jacksonville Jaguars in 2021, Kansas City Chiefs in 2022, Pittsburgh Steelers in 2022, back to the Kansas City Chiefs in 2022, Carolina Panthers in 2023, San Francisco 49ers in 2023, Atlanta Falcons in 2023, New England Patriots in 2023, Carolina Panthers, back to the Panthers in 2023, Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024, San Francisco 49ers in 2024, and back here in Kansas City in 2024. There is something about this guy that keeps teams employing him. He's always ready, I guess. You look at the experience that he has here, nothing particularly sticks out to me. Pretty good on the extra points. He missed one for Jacksonville. You're looking at the touchbacks on kickoffs. Not a very high percentage there early on, but it looks like he got some of it on track later. I think that at this point it's just a kicker. You know, I don't know that there's necessarily anything to write home about here, but except for the fact that he has had more stops than Girls Gone Wild. Is that a dated reference now? I'm afraid that no one knows what I'm talking about. It's a dated reference, but he has been everywhere and hasn't managed to stick someplace. Now, that's not all that odd for kickers. Teams kind of find their guy and go with them, and sometimes you keep one on the practice squad, sometimes your guy gets hurt, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole class of players like Matthew Wright who just kind of float around the league on practice squads and active rosters when a kicker's down for a game, things like that. I think that's all that is. Cameron Thomas was waived. 6 defensive snaps and 22 special team snaps this season. Was traded, I believe, for a 7th rounder. I believe it was not conditional, which means I think that he was traded straight up for the pick. I don't think there is a condition in or a clause in that trade that would allow the Chiefs to get out of owing that pick. Just didn't work. I mean, there's not much else to say there. So, is what it is. They tried, they swung, and they missed. Everyone was hopeful, just didn't come to fruition. Lucas Niang was released from the practice squad as well. This is disappointing. I really liked Lucas Niang. I thought that he had some upside when he was drafted. I thought that he showed a little bit in the time that he was on the field for the Kansas City Chiefs. I thought that he had no chance, I don't think, to play guard. And at offensive tackle, I think that what happened to him was he just missed too much time. For anyone who doesn't remember, he missed his final season in college. I believe it was a hip injury. And then he got into the league in the COVID year, opted out during that year. Or maybe was that his second year? Anyway, off and on for about 3 years for Lucas Niang, off and on whether or not he was playing football. I think it all just added up, and he was not able to come back and really make a difference after all the COVID stuff. Now, the next thing, disappointing for me because I really like Truman Jones. Truman Jones was also released from the practice squad. This is a guy from Harvard, 6'4", 251 pounds, had 10 1/4 inch hands, had 34.5-inch arms, had an 81 3/8 inch wingspan, a 4.68 40. That's a good number. A 4.38 short shuttle, a 37-inch vertical, and a 122-inch broad jump. Those are really good numbers. 3-cone drill of 7.3, here or there, right down the middle kind of, and 17 reps on the bench press is nothing to write home about, but he was going to be a speed merchant or bust. I really liked, he has a spin move that is absolutely incredible. Hopefully he keeps himself in shape and ends up back with the Kansas City Chiefs come training camp. But Truman Jones there, released from the practice squad. This was his second season on the practice squad. And Baylor Cupp was brought back. Baylor Cupp, the tight end from Texas Tech that the Kansas City Chiefs brought in to training camp. I think this guy has a lot of potential. I don't think he's ever going to be your top of the roster guy, but I do think that he could be your Peyton Hendershot, Jody Fortson type of guy that is kind of floating around the bottom edge of the roster and he's got the body for special teams for sure. 6'6" 3/8 inches tall, 243 pounds. He was reportedly, I think, up to 247. So if he can get to that 250-ish mark, he is in the elite sort of territory for size overall. Maybe not the tallest guy, maybe not the heaviest guy, but the two put together, pretty good numbers there. 33-inch arm length on a tight end, 10 3/8 inch hands, 30-inch vertical, 9'11" broad jump, and 23 reps on the bench press. There was a number floating around for a while there that he had run a 4.59 40, I believe it was. Apparently that was apocryphal. He did not do that. That never took place. But when you look at him on film, he can move. And he's a guy that I think could grow into Jason Dunn. I think that is the ultimate for a Baylor Cupp, is a Jason Dunn type big second tight end who the defense refuses to pay attention to and will make you pay for that. I think that is the guy that the Baylor Cupp could be. And though he does not necessarily show the necessary blocking prowess to be a dominator, he has the size, he has the arm length, he has the strength. If he can just learn the technique, then if he can learn the technique and put it behind all of the tools that he has, he can be upper level, upper echelon immediately without ever having to put the tenacity into it. When you're talking about tight ends and blocking, he doesn't have to be an absolute crusher. So I think that he could be next year's third, fourth tight end guy. It depends. Well, I guess it would be fourth, because you do have Noah Gray on that new contract. Hopefully Travis Kelce is back. Jared Wiley, I think, not a disappointing rookie season before the injury, and then the injury kind of seals the deal on Jared Wiley's rookie year. So if the Kansas City Chiefs are so adamant on keeping 4 tight ends on the active roster all the time, I think Baylor Cupp is a guy that could give the Peyton Hendershots of the world a run for their money. That is all I have for this episode. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.